Hello viewers, it's a beautiful morning here in the studio today being the 5th of December 2022, officially 20 days to the bells of Christmas. You're welcome to the morning program, The Dailies on Echo Television International. I am your host, Elisha Dashim, and as usual, of course, I have with me the beautiful Rachel Tazi. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning, Sir.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
How was the weekend?
Just fine. How was yours?
It was fine. It's actually looking very beautiful than you this
So
morning.
do you. You're
Thank
looking
you.
good this morning.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We're live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so please do well to follow us on all our social media handles. Share with your loved ones so they can also be actively involved in what is happening this morning, especially as we look at what is trending on the Nigerian newspapers. And we'll be starting with Rachel, and she will be giving us a Blueprint newspaper.
On the Blueprint newspaper, unconstitutional change of government threatening democratic gains. This is coming from Buhari. Coming from the Chinese envoy. You can start with that story on the front page and continue on page 6. And the big story on Blueprint: terrorists shoot, wound a man, abduct 13 in Katsina mosque. The writer says police rescue 6 on the trial of suspects. Gunmen nabbed at Mina residence of APC senator. Deadly Boko Haram commander Rugu surrenders. Abductors demand 100 million naira ransom for Ondo monarch's release. OPWS troops rescue kidnapped victims for Benue robbery attack. And those stories can be found on page 6 and 27 of the Blueprint newspaper. Zenith Bank wins 2022 Bank of the Year Nigeria Award. Through Nigerians' discovery of Nigerian values. This is coming from the Nasarawa State Governor, and you can read what he has to say on page 24. 8 months after, Abuja-Kaduna train resumes operation today. Still on the Blueprint newspaper, on Oru West, arrest, prosecute attackers of our Imo office, INEC tells Securities Agency. And at the downside of the paper, my life under threat for exposing irregularities in Adeleke certificate. This is coming from a PDP chieftain. We have vigilante killed as vandals destroy 6 power transmission towers in Rivers. And on 2023 election, like Tafa fellow to MKO, Tinubu will beat Konkoso in Kano. This is coming from a commissioner. And you can read why he is saying that on page 7. Okowa boasts of PDP victory, says APC tenant in Aso Rock. Grandma, pregnant woman in NDLEA is net for 5,527.15 kg of meth and other hard drugs. And that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, I will be starting with a big story. Security, education key to poverty reduction, says Atiku, Obi, and Kwankwaso. The writer says, as Tinubu again shunned presidential debate series. The presidential candidate of the People Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and the New Nigerian People's Party, NNPP Rabiu Kwankwaso, on Sunday all agreed that security and education are required to pull Nigerians out of poverty. They said this while responding to questions on the Arise TV presidential town hall series. The Sunday edition was the third in the series. In his submission, the PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar said he will use available statistics to deal with the issues of security and education. According to him, investment in education and security will go a long way in addressing the poverty challenge. He said, we have all the statistics. We have to get our children educated. By the time you educate them, they become readily available for the private sector to recruit them. The private sector is key to driving the economy. The private sector is a third world country agriculture is the main employer of labor. And you can continue to read more about what all these three presidential candidates in the various parties have to say about elevating Nigeria from poverty. And I can't agree less than that, Rachel,
Yes.
because it's very paramount at a time like this that we have finally come to the realization that education is key to actually not only will it lift the Nigeria, population out of poverty, but also it will go a long way to reduce the rate of insecurity that we have in the country. Because of course, if you are educated, if you have something doing, you have little or no time whatsoever to even think about causing problem. You'll be thinking about how can you enrich your country, how can you contribute to nation building, how can we be able to rub shoulders with other developed countries, because we are still developing and we have stayed in that circular in that point for a very, very long time. By this time we're supposed to be pulling other African nations too, rather than still depending on other developed countries. So I'm happy that these three presidential candidates have realized that there is a need for education, and I'm hoping to see that being put right now at work, even before you finally get to become the presidential candidate, regardless whether you win or not. Because one thing we know for sure, that out of these three or more, just one person is going to emerge finally as the president of Nigeria. So what now happened to the brilliant ideas these other presidential candidates have? Will we just leave? Are we going to just let go of all these ideas? I think that is where there will be a synergy between who the president is and other aspirants that we're hoping to be the president. I think it shouldn't now be about your party. No, it should be about we have one common goal, and that is to make Nigeria better. So I look forward to all of that, even though we can see that again the APC presidential candidate was absent. But regardless of what it is, one thing is for sure, that we look forward to seeing a Nigeria that we all crave for, a Nigeria that we all be proud of at the end of the day.
Like Sarah, the truth is that it's not rocket science that we do need education in this country. Like everybody knows that, the past administration knows that, the past administration knows that, the coming administration will know that, and the one after it. But I believe that the problem we have in Nigeria is not that we don't know what we need, but is that we're not doing what we need. Of course, when you look at every forward economy and developed system in the world, education is always a priority. Now, I don't need these candidates to tell us that we need education. I mean, even a blind person knows we need education. Even somebody who did go to school, like even the least, even a newborn baby knows they need education. Let me put it to that level. What I'm expecting from these people is telling us how they plan on taking the education system to the next level. That is what we need in Nigeria. Not telling us about education like it's some new discovery that we don't know about. Because 10 years ago, we heard education is the way forward. 20 years ago, we heard education is the way forward. And today is 2022, and you're still using education as a campaign strategy for 2023. I feel this is very backward. What we need to know is, how do you plan on taking the education sector of Nigeria to the next level? Like, if you look at our curriculum for primary school, Stella, it will shock you that the same thing you learned in primary school is the same thing someone who is about to go to primary one is still learning. And I'm not saying we are old, but at least it's been a while we've left primary school. I'm not saying we are old. It should be reviewed. Our curriculum should be upgraded, but it's not even upgraded, because I had the privilege of being a teacher and I know what is still being taught in our school. That already says we are backward. I'm looking forward to where children are having a mind-blowing science project, where a primary school lab for science is good, like a secondary school own, and a secondary school have the standard of a tertiary university, and the tertiary university is having the standard of an industry that could produce something. But we don't have that in our schools. We don't have that in our school. So why don't they tell us? We already know that education is key. Don't use it as a campaign. You're taking us backward. No, education is not a new discovery or a new invention you're bringing. It's not wow enough. What will wow us is you telling us how, what step, how high do do you plan on taking the education system of Nigeria? What are the infrastructure? What are the structures you're going to put for us in those schools to make sure that when our juniors go to school in Nigeria, they come out better because they have an environment that allows them to explore and do what they can do. I think that's what I'm looking for to this candidate, but not just using education as we already know that. Tell us how and what level do you plan on taking the educational system of Nigeria?
True, Rachel. I totally agree with you. Well, we look forward to them,
We
actually
are
buying
looking
your idea, because this is $1 billion idea coming
is.
from you. So I hope that they will take that seriously. Still on the Daily Times, we have campaigning in Chatham House can help you. Atiku Okowa campaign mocks Tinubu, says no voters abroad. You can read more of that on page 4. Other stories here say printing of the new naira without appropriation of the National Assembly illegal and unconstitutional. This is coming from the human rights activist Femi Falana. Other stories here say attack won't stop the 2023 polls, INEC assures Nigerians. And we have another story that says Buhari charges the new ECOWAS management to complete ongoing reforms, lament unconstitutional change in sub-region. Downside of the paper, we have the federal government of Nigeria bonds attract investors as the PFA's investment hit 9 trillion naira. You can follow up that story on page 2. We have a picture story too where we can see the former governor of Cross River State, Sule Lamido of Jigawa, the governor of Sokoto State, Director General of the People Democratic Party, Aminu Tambuwa, the former president of Obasanjo, the former governor of Osun State, Prince Oyasola, and the PDP vice presidential candidate governor of Delta State, Femi Okowa, during a closed-door meeting with Obasanjo at his Abeokuta residence on Saturday night. So you can follow more of that story inside the Daily Times, and that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, printing of new Naira note will be declared unconstitutional if, this is coming from Falana, you can read that on page 12. Marketers threaten to shut fuel stations. Remittance to Nigeria, other sub-Saharan African countries hit $53 billion in 2022. This is a report from World Bank. And the big story on Nigerian Tribune at Arise TV Town Hall series. Atiku Obi Kwankwaso reel out plans to tackle poverty, insecurity, and the writer says Atiku speaks on how to reduce poverty by funding SMEs and properly implementing SIP scheme. Hold federal government responsible for poverty level. This is coming from Obi. Kwankwaso blames rising poverty on unabated security challenges and Tinubu shunts meeting, and all of that can be found on page 27. Again, hoodlums attack INEC office in Imo. Zenith Bank wins Bank of the Year in Banker Awards 2022. Voting based on emotion will destroy Nigeria. This is coming from Obasanjo, and we should heed to that warning, and you can read why he is saying that on page 23. And at the downside of the paper, rigged prosperity, how 133 million Nigerians languish in poverty. This is coming from experts, and we have a news analysis, the Buhari governor's war, that can be found on page 4. Outrage as train fare hike takes effect today. Abuja Kaduna resumes service amid tight policy, and that can be found on page 27. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On first news, we have Atiku's endorsement, Dogara and others only seeking relevant stomach infrastructure. This is coming from Efegbo. That you can read more inside the first news newspaper. 2023 polls will be Nigerians' turning point. Don't vote with emotion, coming from the former president Obasanjo. France beat Poland 3-1 and reached the World Cup quarter-finals. For our sport lovers, you can follow that story closely inside the paper. How governors began to steal local government funds. This is coming from Atiku. Says governors in 1999 protested direct transfer of funds to councils. Alleged they used joint account to siphon and deplete the local government allocations. PDP presidential flag bearer wants constitution amendment to make local council financially independent. And I believe that has already been passed. We're just waiting for the State House of Assemblies
Yes.
to implement that change of constitution and amend that. So we look forward to seeing more being done over there. PDP appoint Dogara as campaign council member. Endorsing Atiku, a grave error on your part. Obi blast Dogara, says ex-speaker ran from frying pan to fire. You can read more of that too. How Aisha Buhari's critic met a governor after meeting with president failed. You can read more of that also. Kenyamo releases Tinubu's American visa, knocks critics. And this is coming from Wike. Governor Autumn fires back at APC over errand boy comments. Another INEC office set ablaze in Imo State. Navy rating killed policeman, injured others in Lagos. And we have 13 abducted as insurgents attack mosques in Castina. And we have another story here still on the World Cup's finals. So you can do well, grab the first news and read all of the stories or any that is of interest to you.
Sada, before we move forward to the next paper, I like to say concerning people or hoodlums, whoever they are, burning down INEC offices. I want to believe that these are Nigerians that don't want a better Nigeria, because it doesn't make sense to me that you are a Nigerian, then you are burning such properties that you know are important for the coming 2023 election. And I want to believe that it's all about mindset. And I believe that somebody who would do that is a very jobless youth, because when it comes to hoodlums, touts, thugs, and all of that in the society, it's always the youths of Nigeria that are being used to do such things. Wherever there's chaos, wherever there's a disturbance, whatever it is always the youths that are the receiving side. And I wonder why you want a better Nigeria and you're being allowed to be used by whosoever is asking you to do that. Even if you're not being asked, if it's for some reason on your own with your group of friends, you decide to do something like that, then it means you don't want a better Nigeria. First of all, you're a very confused and lost youth. And I would like to say, if these people are being grabbed, they should not be treated softly. Nothing like bail should be given to them. I want to believe that our lawmakers should immediately sit down. INEC should sit down and come up with whatever the punishment should be for these people. They should go through trial, but I don't think these people deserve any kind of freedom, because what we are fighting for in Nigeria is freedom of all sorts, of all kind. Because with insecurity, we are not free. With poverty, we are not free. With lack of education, which means majority of us, we see the numbers out of school students are becoming illiterate, it means that we are not free, because we will be under bondage to illiteracy, and it means we won't grow in the nearest future. So when you are trying to scatter the freedom of Nigeria, let me put it that way, because come 2023 is a crucial moment, and when you do things like that, you're taking us backward. I don't believe you need freedom. I don't care what your mindset is. I don't even think you deserve a corrected mindset in any way, because you are a youth. I want to believe an old person cannot do this. It's always the youth in the society. It means you don't want a better Nigeria. Therefore, you shouldn't live in a better Nigeria. You should be locked up somewhere. So I just hope that something really serious, harsh, a punishment, nothing simple, should be given to these people when any of them are being caught. And I hope that they are being found.
Of course, Rachel, you know, this is not the first time we're seeing them setting any of these INEC offices ablaze. And then I think, was it 2 weeks or a month where we saw some of the statistics of the number of voters' cards that were being destroyed,
yeah.
Voting, ballot papers, and other materials that will be needed for the, the election. And we stated the fact that it's not enough to reprint them, because INEC told us it's not really going to be that hectic for them to reprint. But then I remember we brought out the point that how about the resources we'll be needing for those reprinting? You are taking us backward again. The money that is supposed to be allocated for something different, we now see that it's being still sent into the same same thing that was done over again. And I remember we said they need to work with other sister body because INEC don't have any law enforcement in the INEC. They
Yes.
depend on other sister bodies to help them to be able to checkmate all of that. So I hope that this is not the first time IMO office is being attacked. So I hope that this should just be an eye-opener. We've been craving on them, their conscience of Nigerians. Please stay away from such violence, from such behavior. And also I think there should be a very critical measure that should be put in place, especially securing all of these sensitive materials so that we can have an election that we all crave for. Because I know that we are all itching for 2023 because we all have great plans. We all want to go exercise our franchise. But I look forward that Nigerians realize that no matter how much is being paid for you to do this, it's not worth it at the end of the day. Why don't they use their kids? Your life is at stake, your future is at stake, your family. If you don't even pity yourself, pity your parents, pity your loved ones, those who rely or who are actually looking, taking care of you, looking forward to you being a better person. So I hope that Nigerians realize that this act won't take us anywhere, because 2023 is a must for all of us. We have to go out there and actually, exercise our franchise. And I think that's all on the first news.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, 2023 presidential debate, Atiku Konkoso Obi lock horns. And 2-3 perish in Delta Road accident, that can be found on page 4. And the big story on Daily Sun, Atiku attacks Tinubu over foreign trip. The writer says claims APC candidate embarked on journey to dodge TV debate. Okowa, Tambuwa, Lamido, others meet Obasanjo. Support efforts to end AIDS presidency charges Nigerians. Don't use religion to divide Nigeria. National Mosque Imam cautions politicians. We have 13% derivation areas. Have no apologies commending Buhari. This is coming from Wike. Atiku's endorsement, Dogara seeking relevance. This is coming from Afebwa, and you can read all of that on page 28. Controversy as NRC increases train fares from Monday. Uninformed increment unnecessary. This is coming from and baseless. This is coming from passengers complaining about that. And we still have a story that says why we haven't endorsed any candidate. This is coming from Igbo Town Unions and still on our presidency. And you can read that on page 6. And at the downside of the paper, we still have Zenith Wings Bag of the Year award. That can be found on page 2. We have a picture story there concerning the ECOWAS headquarters building with the Chinese envoy and our president. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
All right, before we move further to other papers, we'd like to take a time out right at this moment so we can let you choose some of the stories and also drop your comment, your contribution on what you feel is the way forward to most of all of the story we have read. If you feel education is the way forward and you feel that the present administration or the past administration have done what they need to do, we really love to hear from you. And also the local government autonomy, the back and forth from the president and the governors on they being the reason why we are having about 133 million poverty rate in Nigeria presently. So we really love to hear from you. So do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Thank you for staying tuned. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies on Equa Television International. We've been looking at the newspaper reviews, what have been happening and trending from the weekend down to today. We're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube. So please do well, drop your comment, drop your contribution, follow us and share with your loved ones so that they can be actively involved in what is happening in the studio this morning. I still remain your host, Sarah Elisha Dashom, and I have with me Rachel Tanzi, of course. Rachel, thank you for doing this with me.
You're welcome.
All right, let us move further by taking a look at what the world of business is saying this morning from the national economy. We have the currency rate, buying, selling, the inflation rate from 2021 to 2022, and commodity prices. So you can check down gas at $22.711. That is at the commodity price. You can check how much you can buy the dollar, exchange it, and the inflation rate from June down to August. The big story on national economy, we have 4 trillion naira annual loss, escalating illegal mining thrives amid Nigeria's dwindling revenue. Despite government's effort, criminals continue with economic sabotage. And this is really something that's really thriving very well, talking about illegal mining. Like, we have them everywhere.
We do.
In fact, if you say you don't know where they are, you're living in denial, because we have them in our communities, we have them in our areas, we have them virtually in every area. And I think the government, maybe they are trying, but then we are employing them to do much more better. We know the effect of all this illegal mining. We've had where people have lost their life as a result of that. We've had issues where lots of them are locked up because it's illegal. And let's not even talk about the pollution that is this illegal mining causes at the end of the day. Erosion it causes. Yes. You can't even plant in those areas, and then the earth keep washing away as a result of all of this. You can see the picture story there showing how much, you know, most of these people go deep to make sure that they get what they want to get at the end of the day. So I just hope that it's not just about getting them and locking them up, but then we should harness this energy that they have. If they have the skill, the idea that is needed to be able to do this, then why don't the government create a union for them? Use this energy that they have, because whatever they discover here, it runs into tons of money, dollars, you know, that can actually, you know, contribute to the nation building. And so I just hope that the government will really look into this, because if we're talking about natural resources, especially minerals, this is where we'll talk about it. There was a time where Plateau State was known for this tin and mining, all of that. But then right now, we don't hear anything about it again. It's not that we don't have all these things any longer, but because we've decided to focus our attention on something else. So I look forward to where the government will look into, okay, what more can we do apart from agriculture, apart from crude oil? Why don't we look into the natural resources we have in the country and see that we also, you know, make good use of it to contribute and also make Nigeria a better place?
Like, just as you rightly said, Sele, like, we were known to be a tin mining state, and Columbine, it wasn't just tin, and that's why we call Tin City just, and all of that. And then, like every other resource, it doesn't go. The same way we've had oil for like over 20 years or more than that in Nigeria, is the same way these minerals don't just disappear overnight just because you mine them for like 10 years. We still have it. We still have it. But the problem we're having is just the illegal mining. And you can see that we're losing 4 trillion naira, for Christ's sake, to illegal mining all over Nigeria. That's to tell you that if we're losing that much, it means we made some amount of money, but that's how much we're losing despite what we are making. It means that it has a lot of potential, and it means we just keep, like, and I keep saying that, whether, let's tell ourselves the truth, Nigeria has turned out to be a depreciating economy. Instead of building up on what we already have, we neglect what we have, and by the time we wake up and decide to come back to it, it feels like we're starting from the beginning. Instead of it to be a continuation, it's always like we're starting from the beginning. But what's eating us up is the illegal mining. And even here on the plateau, you see a lot of foreigners, and you know that these are illegal miners. They come here, they make millions and millions mining down to Nasarawa State and all of that. You're here, you don't see them running any business, but they're driving in cars, having entourages like the government and all of that. And you know that this is what these people are doing. You see it because, you, like, at the back of my house, there is a mining pond. It's an old one, but when we moved there, it was kind of active. There was still the mining activity going on. And it has damaged that whole place because no house, just when the rainy season comes, we are left with a big pond, very cold, and after it just goes, and then the land is just there. So in every society, you can't say you are not witnessing this illegal mining. But then what is the government planning to do about it? The corruption of this illegal mining has eaten deeply, but we can take over. We can take it back, because not just few individuals need to benefit from a certain thing. That's the problem. We need the state to benefit from it, and that's the only way the wealth of certain resources can get to the common man. But as long as we keep allowing this illegal mining go on, like no matter the money we have on the plateau and other states that have these solid minerals, we will keep lavishing in poverty. I keep saying it's not about finding these resources. What are the structure put in place that the common man gets to benefit from the wealth that are being found in their state and in their community? Unless something is done about it, we will just keep complaining about illegal mining, complaining about all the resources, the minerals we have, and nobody will see it, and we'll keep crying even when we are not supposed to cry.
Of course, Richard. So I look forward to the government doing that. The problem I have is that we have some even government officials that work with these illegal miners.
Of course, we
and
do.
At the end of the day, they keep, just like you said, few individuals that aren't benefiting from it. So we will look forward to where the mining corporation will put hands together with the government, and then we'll do something about that. Still on national economies, we have the skyrocketing airfare puts airlines travelers in tight spot. You can read more of that on page 5. And we have a question that says, will Naira redesign curb the rising inflation? You want to know the answer to that, look that up on page 4. And also we have on pages 5 how to identify the fake Naira note. This is very important, as we have barely about 10 days for the new Naira to be launched into the market properly. So you really need to have these tips on your finger. So I will indulge you to keep a date with me later by 2:30, where we shall be looking at more on how we can identify these fake Naira notes on business and finance. And that's all on the national economy.
On the Matrix newspaper, for endorsing article, Peter Obi campaign mugs Dogara. Naira redesigning may run into troubled waters, Falana warns. World Cup roundup, England, France set up tantalizing Qatar. We have Kolmani oil field, crisis brews at Bauchi, and Gombe communities natives lay claim to new oil well. The writer says 4 oil wells are in Gombe. Boundary Commission hypocritical, says governor's special advisor. Kolmani is in Gombe. Late NNPC GMD misled Buhari. Niger Delta scenario looms. This is coming from the residents. And the big story on the Matrix, Africa major infrastructures, 4 Nigeria mega project listed. And the writer says Lekki Deep Sea Port, Dangote Refinery listed. And we have Keyamo Lutz Buhari, Tinubu for the mega projects. Still on the Matrix newspaper, I will show Nigerians my health status if need be. This is an assurance from Atiku. Student critique Adamu apologies to Aisha Buhari, vows to deactivate social media accounts. Police parade fake security team for invading Senator Musas, and this is coming from Niger. Another INEC office burnt down in Imo. Another downside of the paper, Asake apologizes to fans for coming late to show in Birmingham names. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
You know, Richard, this story on this Kulmani oil field that we're having the resident of Bauchi and Gombe. You remember when the first time the president went over to London, we had a conversation here where we said that if care is not taken, we're going to have a repeat of the Niger Delta scenario. And we're having it right here. We are yet to know who are the people, who are the real owners of the oil. And I just hope that it's not a story of the boundaries. But this we shouldn't just see that, okay, yes, of course, it's normal for you to think that this is in my state. But then above all, what is this going to do to the nation,
nation
inside at
at
a time like
large?
this? We saw in the papers already, marketers are threatening to shut down filling stations. We've seen, I think yesterday on my way to the church, I saw one of the mega filling stations was locked, and there were cars hoping and trusting that the filling station will be open so they could fill their cars. A time has reached where people are even parking their cars and they prefer to actually trek or take the public transport because very few people can even afford the petrol. Right now, we're even talking about poverty, not to even talk about, it's only when you eat, you tend to start looking for where there's fuel to even do something reasonable at the end of the day. And here we're having another crisis, having the fact that whether it was there was a the president was being misled by the former the late NNPCG general manager. I just hope that we'll really sit back and really address this, because it's a matter of time. If this is not being addressed, we'll start hearing that there's oil spillage. We'll start hearing that illegal refineries coming up left, right, and center over there. We'll start hearing that oil is leaving the shores of from that Bauchi or from that Gombe to another part. So these are questions. I think this is a discussion that should not just end on the papers. It should not just be that it's on the paper and then tomorrow we have another news story. No, there should be a follow-up. What are the agents, or who are the agencies involved in this? What can be done? Can they be brought to a round table? Let's have a reasonable conversation. What is the way forward? What does Gombe stand to gain? What does Bauchi stand to gain? What does Nigeria stand to gain? I think these are conversations we should have at the end of the day. Because whether we like it or not, some residents would definitely feel being left out. We're still having the issue of how much percentage the Niger Delta states are receiving, because they are having the oil wells in their own state. So I hope that we actually address this and not just leave it on the papers, and tomorrow we're having another story and nothing is being done to address this issue.
Deep down within me, I feel this is an easy one, but for some reason there is some chaos that wants to come out of it, and it doesn't make sense to me, because you know what, gone are those days where it was maybe the new Republic of Nigeria and some states were not yet divided and all of that, because I want to believe that Nasarawa wasn't on its own. It was together with the Plateau and all of that. It's no longer that era. So what is the confusion? We know where Plateau ends. We know where Bauchi starts. We know where Kaduna starts. We know where Gombe ends. So where is this thing really like? Is it in Gombe? If it is in Gombe, can we leave it and say it's in Gombe? Because it's not something difficult anymore. But then, if it is in both, if it's the both, like if at the border and for some reason it's difficult, then let them come and sit down together. But then, where is this thing really at? Is it just in Gombe and maybe just close to the boundary? It doesn't matter. Where it's in is where it's in. Like, there's no two ways about it. Don't try to make it a two-state thing if it's meant to be one state. But if it is spread across a region where it gets into the other state, then it's all about, okay, which state has the most and the least rather of it. You understand? But then I don't see it as in Niger. We're too quick to say it is a Niger Delta scenario, because that was new for us at that time. So some of the problems that were faced at that time were very new and not common to us. But now, that's not the case anymore. We are too grown, educated, wise, advanced to say and agree that we're going to have the Niger Delta issue. So can these people sit down, forget what the late managing director of the NNPC said to Buhari? What is the fact now in front of you? Where is this oil rig or exploration taking place? Is it mainly in Gombe? Then let's leave it to one state. There's no need merging it and making it a two-state thing if it is just for one state. If it is only in Bauchi, I feel this is really not a tough one if only the right thing should be done. And I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that the right thing will be done, and we should be above some certain things. Niger Delta shouldn't repeat itself here in any way.
Yeah, Rachel, I think the only way this will be easy, let's have a draft, the map of all these boundaries, and then with that being done, it will be easy to actually know that. Well, let's look at the next paper, which is the Leadership newspaper. Tinubu speak at Chatham House today, 7 years after Buhari. You can read more of that story on page 7. And on Imo attack, we have INEC lost 7th office to artisans in 4 months. Other stories here we have that it's trending. Labour Party releases 72-page manifesto. At least is what people have been looking forward to. So finally, the Labour Party have released their manifestos. And we have Peter Obi to help Nigeria tap into the $3 trillion international climate finance. So you can read more of that too on page 2 of the Leadership newspaper. Illegal custom checkpoints frustrating trans-border trade. This is coming from Shippers. You can read that story on the front page and also on page 7. The big story says at the Arise TV town hall, Atiku Obi Kwankwaso denounced poverty rate in Nigeria, identify insecurity as the major cause, roll out plans for education and the health sectors. You can read more on page 4. We have on Qatar 2022, England beats Senegal to set up quarter-final showdown against France. We have the picture story which we have seen is about the project of the ECOWAS headquarters in Abuja, and that is all on the Leadership newspaper.
On the This Day newspaper, Zenith wins Bank of the Year Nigeria in the Bankers Award. We have CBN offered 7.33 trillion naira treasury bills in 6 months, and that can be found on page 5. Still on the Adeleke and Oyetola issue, Oyetola sets many traps for me. I'm yanking them off. This is coming from Buhari. We need urgent action plans against terrorism in West Africa. Wants new ECOWAS management to complete ongoing reforms, flags unconstitutional changes in sub-region. And the big story on this day, with poverty, education, health in focus, presidential hopefuls more solution at Arise Town Hall. Atiku says, I will remove bottlenecks, wastages in government. Obi is saying, I'm ready to channel subsidy funds to the key sectors. And Konkoso is ensuring financial autonomy for local government as critical. And that's all the news on This Day newspaper.
All right, let's move now to the New Telegraph newspaper, where we have customer credit falls 4.9% to 2.43 trillion naira on tight liquidity. OPEC Plus retain Nigerians 1.742 barrel per day in global outdate target. You can read more of that on page 7. Complete reform on good governance democracy. Buhari charges the new ECOWAS leadership. IGP orders maximum security for the Abuja-Kaduna rain operations. Falana is saying why Naira redesign may be declared illegal. That you can find on page 26. And we have on the LCCI freight over Nigeria's sovereign risk profile downgrade. The big story for the New Telegraph has it that insecurity, again, INEC facility attack in Imo, second assault in 3 days, 7th in 5 states within 4 months. Release Kanu, those tension in the southeast. This is coming from the Igbo Town Union telling the federal government normalcy will soon return to Nigeria. This is coming from Shikafi. That you can also read inside the paper. On 2023, Atiku Obi Kwankwaso unveiled plans as Tinubu shun debate again. Okowa is saying no party can take away the South-South from PDP. And the Labour Party presidential candidate, my journey in life manifestation of God's grace. And then we have Adeboye chills oppressive house owners that you can find on page 7. 2023 election will be turning point for Nigeria. This is coming from the former president Obasanjo. Says oil and gas can no longer sustain our economy. Not only agribusiness can feed nation's growing population. You can read more on page 6 and 27. Reps probe the PTAD over failure to recruit staff despite approval. Move $800 million port operators debt probe to Lagos. And downside, we have a study on page 26. So for those who are interested, may you grab the New Telegraph and read the study or any of the story that's of interest to you this morning.
On the Abuja Enquirer, Banker Award 2022 Zenith Bank named Bank of the Year. Minister decries poor sanitary condition in satellite towns. Another INEC office set ablaze 4th in 3 weeks. trouble sleeping, you could be at the risk of type 2 diabetes. So for those of us struggling with sleep, if you're having insomnia very often, you should take this study seriously and report and go see a doctor, because you are at the risk of type 2 diabetes, and you can read all of that on page 14. And the big story, water scarcity hits parts of Abuja, board blames unpaid bills. And we have a picture story with the CBN governor, and that's all the news on the Abuja Inquirer.
All right, let me round up the program with the Business Day newspaper. The big story says Nollywood grabs global attention as film school investment surges. So you can read more of that story inside the paper. Violence, fake news top INEC worries ahead of elections. Zenith Bank wins the Bank of the Year award. Peter Obi lists 3 priority areas in energy sector. In skills rather than just degree, Paitami give reality to his passion. And I think this is what everyone should do. We have a picture story too. So you do well, grab the Business Day newspaper and read any of the story that is of interest to you. Thank you so much to all our followers. Thank you so much to those who have been following us, very, they have been very, will I call it?
Diligent.
Exactly, and we really appreciate you for doing this. Thank you to the Echo Executive team. Thank you also to the crew members for making sure this program is prompt on air. And until we come your way again, do have a blessed day ahead.